road in only 3 weeks. The legend is only partly true. It actually took him years to write it. I'm working with biographer Paul Mayer Jr. to explain what really happened when Kerouac went on the road, how his literary style developed, and how the so-called Beat Generation emerged. Our book is called Burning, Furiously Beautiful, the true story of Jack Kerouac's On the Road. There are some people from Richmond Hill here tonight. So I thought it would be fun to read a little section from the book about when Kerouac was living in Richmond Hill and writing an early draft of On the Road called Gone on the Road. This is called Hearing Voices in Richmond Hill. While Neal Cassady was having trouble in paradise in San Francisco, Jack Kerouac was living a far less complicated life with his mother in Richmond Hill. Just east of where they've been living in Ozone Park, Richmond Hill is in the central southern part of the New York borough of Queens. Tucked away from the temptations of Manhattan, Jack was content to be writing once again at his desk, while his mother fawned over him. Gone on the Road began on July 26, 1950, in Richmond Hill, with a chapter titled An Awkward Man. The awkwardness of his first-person narrator was due to a temporary loss of identity. He had written of it before, all the way back in the early 1940s. This time, his narrator wakes up in an old beat hotel room with the shades drawn. He had no idea if it was day or night, and in the space of 5 or 6 seconds, I completely lost every faintest, poorest, most woeful recollection of who I was. The work struggled on before he gave it up completely. He gave this version of On the Road to Bob Garreau for consideration, but the editor flatly rejected it. Farrar Straus asked for further revisions before they considered the book at all. Kerouac felt it would be best just to rewrite the whole thing from scratch. One of the more important discoveries Kerouac made during October 1950 was the importance of voice in writing. Listening to the World Series on the radio, he noticed the sports announcers capturing the thrill of the game with their practiced use of adjectives. Speaking the French-Canadian dialect of Zoual at home with his mother, he was fascinated with capturing a distinct and familiar American vernacular and using colloquialisms in his writing. He envisioned writing an American-type series that captured the narration of the voices of Americans themselves. One part of the story was narrated by a 10-year-old African-American boy. This was later published in 1971 as the novella Pip. Other voices he attempted to capture were Mexicans, French-Canadians, Westerners, Italians, jailbirds, hipsters, and hobos. He also wanted to distill the pure locus of Neal Cassady onto the writing page. Of Cassady's stone spiel, Jack wanted to type it verbatim, to experience the direct appeal of confessional writing. In response to a letter from Cassady, he wrote on October 6, 1950, "It was the best letter I ever received and the best letter you ever wrote in your life." He thought that Cassady, for once, had not become hung up on maintaining a literary voice. He captured the magic that Shakespeare experienced with Hamlet. When Hamlet spoke, it sounded like Hamlet's voice, not Shakespeare's. Kerouac experimented with capturing a truly authentic voice for his characters. Rather than literary dialogue that would never take place beyond the pages of a book, he wanted to create a voice that simulated overheard conversation. wild, ebullient, frank, and honest, moving with the discordant complexities of Bach. The voice and spirit of Neil Cassidy was his guiding light. At last, he was on to something that would make a stylistic difference. It was, in his estimation, the long confession of two buddies telling everything that ever happened. Cassidy's letters pointed toward a writing breakthrough for Kerouac. He had purchased a tape recorder and recorded himself with Cassidy during one of their stone rap sessions, later transcribing it faithfully for the experimental novel Visions of Cody. Cassidy saw its potential too. Such a device would save him the hassle of writing long letters. Instead, he could unwind a 5,000-page letter every day. Experimenting, Cassidy bought a copy of Thomas Wolfe's Of Time and the River and read pages of it into the microphone.